I fired my son from my company because he was a check forger. I couldn't take it. He was furious, called me a traitor, and sued me. He wanted $1 million in moral damages, the paper said, accusing me of slander. Yeah, and we met in the boardroom. He looked at me like I was deciding his fate. And I was. I loved my son, but he was a fraud. I didn't want to cover for a criminal. I showed him the photocopies of the papers and asked, "Explain," I said. 4 checks, my signature perfect down to the rounded L, only I don't do that rounded letter. It's a forgery. Daniel stared at the page for too long, then at me. "Mom, this is a misunderstanding. You're crazy," he said. "The accounting department is a mess. I think the supplier is to blame. He forged my signature and orchestrated this so seriously, I don't believe it." "You're going to be fired," I said, my voice bitter. He laughed humorlessly. "You can't do that. I'm family." "Exactly," I said, swallowing the pain like a rock. "That's why I have to." Our CFO, May, folded her hands. The lawyer read the policy. I signed the termination. Daniel's chair scraped the floor. "You're slandering me," he said. "Without me, you wouldn't even have this company." He was wrong. I had started the company with my husband in our garage long before Daniel could write his name. He joined us 10 years ago. He was a good communicator, impatient with details. I guided him. His business seemed perfect until it went bad. The courier came a few hours later with the report. Leah, my daughter-in-law, texted me a prayer hands emoji I didn't understand, then another. "We can fix this if you take it back." I put the papers in a blue folder in my desk, the one labeled, "just in case," and called Velasquez's lawyer. "Are you sure?" she said, after I told her everything. "I'm sure he forged at least 4 checks," I said. "I don't know how far it went." "Then we'll treat his complaint like a gift," she said. Discovery is a mutual pleasure. That night, I made soup I didn't taste and sat at the kitchen table with pearls in my ears, listening to the house breathe. I remembered the first time he'd written his name in big, neat letters on a Mother's Day card. I thought of the salesman who thanked me for a payment I never approved, the bank manager who looked surprised to see a late-night deposit, the pen that disappeared from my office and returned uncapped. How could my own son do this to me? The next day, May knocked on my door with a stack of reports. "I was out late," she said. "There's a pattern." The checks are round. 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand, always on Fridays. The supplier is new, Bluefinch Logistics. They have a P.O. box, and the old forms don't have a tax ID. "Bluefinch?" I repeated. It sounded like the name of a child naming a secret club. "We joined them last year," May said. "Daniel insisted. He said they were a specialty carrier. They charge for expedited, which doesn't show up on any freight logs." I flipped through the invoices. The font had changed on the word expedited, a small ripple in the capital E, as if it had been pasted in from a different template. My husband always told me that when people lie to paper, it stutters. "Call our logistics director," I said, quietly. "Request all the cargo that Bluefinch supposedly carried. I need scans of the bills of lading, driver signatures, GPS logs." Velasquez prepared a response to Daniel's complaint, denying defamation and pleading a defense of truth, and counterclaimed for conversion and breach of fiduciary duty. "We'll need bank statements," she said. "We'll subpoena Bluefinch, and we'll question Daniel." Subtly at first, not very delicately, I said. My throat was burning. He was counting on my delicately. Leah showed up unannounced that weekend. She stood on my porch in a camel coat, her damp hair tucked behind her ears, a tote bag slung over her elbow like a peace flag. "I'm worried about him," she said before I could invite her in. "He can't sleep." "He says you humiliated him?" "He humiliated himself," I said. But I softened. I've known Leah since she was 19, when Daniel brought her home on spring break with a sunflower for my windowsill. "Come in," I said. "Tea?" She sat at the table, tracing the wood grain with one finger. "You said you'd always keep family matters out of court," she said. "Family doesn't forge family's name," I said. "What really worries you, Leah?" She looked at me then, truly looked, at my hands, at the lined face she probably sees as a mirror of her own future, at the pearls I wear when I need resilience. "There are people he owes," she said, voice low. "What people?" She flinched. "It's not gambling," she said quickly. "Nothing like that." He made investments. A friend assured him, "What friend?" She gave me a name I recognized from a golf course fundraiser and from my late husband's warnings. Charming, connected, expensive. I thanked her for honesty she should have offered months ago. When she left, I watched her cross the street and tuck her face into her scarf like a girl. By Monday, logistics confirmed what May suspected. Blue Finch never hauled a single pallet for us. The bills of lading were copied from unrelated shipments. Driver signatures were names of minor league baseball players from the 90s. Someone's idea of a joke or a test to see if anyone would notice. No one did until we looked. The subpoena to the bank came back with a crisp report. Blue Finch's account had 2 signers, a registered agent from a mailbox store and someone else hidden behind a trust. The payments flowed out as fast as they came in. One transfer leaped from Blue Finch to a down payment on a condominium under an LLC linked to Leah's maiden name. I closed my eyes. I still wanted to believe in my son's innocence. I opened my eyes and believed the numbers instead. "We'll depose him Thursday," Velasquez said. "I'll lead. You sit, answer only what we agree you'll answer. He'll try to bait you on Thursday." Daniel arrived with a young attorney who kept calling me ma'am and shuffling his legal pad like confetti. Daniel wore a suit I'd bought him 2 Christmases ago. He didn't look at me. We swore in. The court reporter clicked. "Ms. Lancaster," the young attorney started, "isn't it true you've expressed confusion about your finances in recent months?" "Define confusion," Velasquez said. Daniel's attorney smiled. "Forgetfulness. Memory lapses. I thought of the day Leah called me cute forgetful because I asked her to repeat a date. I thought of how convenient forgetfulness would be for them now. I kept my face dry of expression. "I review my finances weekly," I said. "My memory is clear." "Isn't it true you revoked your son's access to accounts without cause?" "I revoked access when I had cause," I said. "He tried to ask about my blood pressure medication." Velasquez objected. He pivoted to the checks. "You accuse your son of forging your signature," he said. "Yet you admit it looks like your signature." "It looks like mine," I said. "It isn't." "How can you be sure?" "Because on Fridays, I don't loop my L," I said, "and because I have eyes." Velasquez slid a page across the table. "We've produced exemplars," she said, "and we'll produce the forensic report on ink composition. But let's not go too far, we have questions too." We asked about Blue Finch. Daniel's attorney said he wasn't prepared to discuss third-party vendors. Velasquez smiled like a woman who knows the map better than the driver. "Then let's discuss the condominium at Harbor Row," she said, "owned by Harrow Partners, LLC. You're listed as a manager." Daniel's jaw tightened. "No questions on that," his attorney said. "It goes to motive," Velasquez said, "and damages. You claim injury to reputation. We claim a pipeline of fraudulent transfers." The court reporter's keys sang. The young attorney asked for a break. Daniel walked out without looking at me. I watched his back and thought of him at 5, boarding the school bus in a raincoat too big for him, turning around twice to wave, reluctant to leave. People don't turn into strangers all at once. They get there by inches. After the deposition, I drove to the bank. Ms. Cho, the manager, met me in her office. She pulled up a digital ledger and rotated the monitor so I could see. "I had flagged one of these late-night deposits," she said, "but your son said you supervised it. I called your office to confirm and spoke to someone who sounded like you. I didn't confirm," I said. "And no one who sounded like me had that authority." She handed me a printed log. The callback number belonged to a prepaid phone. The voice that answered when we dialed was a recording telling us the number had been reassigned. That evening, Leah texted again. "Can we talk?" He's spiraling. "I met her in a coffee shop where the owner still knows my order from the year we sponsored his espresso machine." Leah's hands trembled. She told me there were debts. "Not gambling," she repeated, But the friend, the one from the golf fundraiser, had promised a private offering that would triple their money within 6 months. Daniel borrowed against everything he could privately reach without triggering board oversight. He thought he'd cover it fast, he thought he'd be a hero, and when the investment sank, he panicked. "Why didn't he come to me?" I asked. "Pride," she said. "And because he knew you'd see through it." "Did you help with Bluefinch?" I asked. She looked at me the way a woman looks when she is choosing which part of herself to save. "I signed something," she said, finally. "An incorporation form. I didn't ask questions. I wanted it to be fine." I nodded. "Thank you for telling me now," I said. "Tell him to show up Monday with his counsel for settlement discussion. If he lies again, there won't be another discussion." Velasquez didn't love the idea of meeting so soon. "We're set up to win in court," she said. "Why give him a softer landing?" "Because I'm his mother," I said. "And because a soft landing is still a landing." "But I won't widen the runway Monday." Daniel walked into our old conference room with his attorney and sat in the chair he used to spin in when he was 7 while we wrote checks to suppliers by hand. He looked older. He looked like my father did the day he lost our house to the bank, the one day he told the truth every time someone asked him a question. Velasquez outlined the terms. "You dismiss your complaint with prejudice, Sha Anasdom Barida," she said. "You admit to forging your mother's signature and creating a sham vendor used for embezzlement. You agree to cooperate with a forensic audit and the district attorney. You resign from every role at the company and from any affiliated entities. You transfer any property purchased with diverted funds back to the company or to restitution escrow. In return, we will not pursue prison time beyond what the DA insists upon. We will not seek a civil judgment beyond the stolen amount and fees." Daniel stared at her, then at me. "You'd put me in prison," he said. "I won't," I said. "Your choices might." "You destroy my life," he said. "You did that when you wrote my name," I said. "I'm offering you a way to rebuild something out of the pieces." He stood. "We're done." His attorney followed. Leah stayed seated, hands clenched in her lap. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You're late," I said, not unkindly. "We went to court. Trials are brutal in a way that doesn't show in movies. They're made of waiting and men in suits, carrying too many folders, and women with hard faces at counsel tables and words you've heard all your life turned into traps." The judge was patient. The jurors hid their boredom badly. Daniel's attorney tried to make me into a bitter old woman punishing her only son for not being his father. Velasquez made me into a professional whose age makes her underestimated, not confused. I sat straight and spoke like I did when I negotiated our first warehouse lease. Plain, steady, brief. The twist came from a place I should have expected. Our head of accounts payable, Paul, a man who has worked for me since my hair was more brown than silver, took the stand and admitted he stamped my signature on 2 checks after Daniel told him I'd authorized it. "I thought I was helping," he said, voice small. "He said the vendor would stop a shipment if we didn't pay. I didn't want to be the reason we lost a client." "Did you speak to Miss Lancaster?" Velasquez asked. Paul's eyes filled. "No, ma'am." "Where is the stamp now?" Velasquez asked. "In my bottom drawer," he said. "I shouldn't have one." We recovered the stamp that afternoon. Brass handle, ink-worn light on the tail of the R. And it made me sick to look at it. I used to sign every check myself because watching our money leave hurt, and in that hurt, I felt control. Delegating the stamp had been my compromise with growth. It turned into a weapon. The second twist came from Bluefinch's mailbox. The surveillance camera above the strip mall showed Leah unlocking the box twice. She hadn't told me that part. When Velasquez confronted her in the hallway outside the courtroom, Leah crumpled. "He said it was a backup address," she said. "He said it made money look cleaner. He said you'd approve when he explained." "Would he?" Velasquez asked. "Explain? Or would he let you take the fall while he called his friend from the golf course?" Leah testified under subpoena. She wore a simple dress and cried the way women cry when they're ashamed to be there at all. She admitted she'd used her maiden name to set up an LLC because, she said, "I thought that's what people did, to keep things separate." She swore she hadn't held the pen when my name was copied. She produced text messages from Daniel telling her to keep it quiet until next quarter. They saved her from prosecution and sank him deeper than my heart wanted him to go. The jury didn't take long. They found his claim against me meritless. They found our counterclaim justified. The judge entered an order freezing his assets and referring the file to the district attorney. I heard a low gasp from the second row, one of his friends, maybe the one from the golf course funding fairy tales. After court, Daniel approached me in the corridor. The hallway smelled like old tile and coffee. He looked at my pearls, not at my face. "You're satisfied," he said. It wasn't a question. "I'm not," I said, "but I'm finished." "They'll talk about you," he said, jerking his head toward the voices around us, the low currents of gossip. "They already do, boy," I said. "I built a company. I fired my son. People will find something to say." He leaned in. "You think they'll still respect you?" "I don't run on their respect," I said. "I run on ledgers that add up." He laughed then, a thin, furious sound. "You never loved me," he said. I didn't answer. Sometimes silence is the only thing that tells the truth. The district attorney wanted to make an example. Velasquez negotiated. Daniel pled to a reduced charge with restitution, probation, community service, and a suspended sentence. He avoided prison. He did not avoid consequences. We took back the condominium and sold it. We unwound the sham vendor and clawed back what remained. The friend from the golf course cut his ties to Daniel with the same efficiency he used to attach them. People like him commit loyalty only in the past tense. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. 3 months later, May brought me a printout with 2 small transactions, not enough to notice unless you were looking for what I had learned to see. "We tightened controls," she said, "but there's a back door." The back door was a rebate program we'd used for years, small credits from carriers for on-time volume. They were routed to a legacy account no one used anymore. Someone had woken the account, someone was siphoning the credits into a card. The card paid for gas, then restaurants, then a rental cottage by the lake 2 counties away. "Who?" I asked. I didn't want to look suspiciously at familiar faces, and I did it anyway. "The login came from your house," May said. I sat very still, then I remembered. Leah still had a password she used to check Daniel's calendar when he worked here. After the trial, I told her to change it. Maybe she hadn't, maybe someone else had it. I drove home. The house felt like a stage after the audience has left. I opened the drawer with the blue folder. I took out the small black recorder my sister made me buy. I pressed it on and placed it on the mantle. Then I dialed a number I had promised myself I wouldn't dial again. "Daniel," I said when he answered, "we need to talk." "I don't work for you," he said. "We need to talk," I repeated. "About the cottage." Silence. Then a sound between a sigh and a groan. "I'm getting my life together," he said. "At a rental, paid for with our rebates?" I asked. "That wasn't part of your plea? How could you possibly—" "Because I'm not dead," I said. "Because I know the smell of smoke." He hung up. An hour later, he was at my door. He didn't knock. He still had an old key. I'd changed locks after the trial, but apparently not the side door. My oversight. He stood in my living room and looked smaller than the last time I saw him, as if the decisions he made had eaten him from the inside. "You're tracking me," he said. "I'm tracking my money," I said. "The company's money. Money we need to pay people who don't have lakeside cottages." He rubbed his face. "It wasn't supposed to be permanent," he said. "Leah needed space. I needed to think. He stopped. "You needed to feel like the person you were before you did this," I said. "I understand that need. It doesn't change the math." He sank onto the sofa. He picked up the framed photo on the end table, him at 8, squinting at the sun, missing a front tooth, holding the string of a kite my husband kept in the trunk for sudden wind. I could smell that day even now. Cut grass, peanut butter, laundry detergent fading in heat. "I don't know how to be the person you raised," he said. "I tried. I kept failing. Then be the person who pays back what he took, I said. Be the person who stops stealing before he needs a judge to stop him. He nodded. Tears came and went. They didn't change anything. We wrote down a plan. He transferred the card back to us. He agreed to additional restitution. He agreed to therapy. He agreed to tell Leah the truth before the truth reached her without him. He agreed to let me set up a trust for his daughter that bypassed both of them for a time, with conditions tied to milestones, graduation, steady employment, sobriety, if it became an issue. He signed the papers. He did not apologize, not then. Some apologies take a year to warm into words. I told Velasquez everything. She raised one eyebrow at my lenience, but did not argue with the trust. Make it airtight, she said. Make it boring. We did. The trust document reads like a fence. No climb footholds, no gaps. It made me sad and deeply relieved. Paul, from Accounts Payable, brought me a chocolate cake on my next birthday. May insisted on candles. Leah came with my granddaughter, who wore a paper crown and insisted I wear another. There were awkward hugs and careful sentences. There was the weight of what we had been and the small light of what we might still be. Daniel arrived late, hair damp, tie crooked. He waited by the door until I waved him in. He looked at the floor, then at the cake, then at me. I started a job, he said. Contractor, nothing fancy. Good, I said. Work is a broom. He half smiled. I know you don't owe me anything, he said. But thank you for not burying me. I didn't save you, I said. I saved the company. I saved myself. He nodded. I know. We cut the cake. My granddaughter licked frosting from her finger and declared it perfect. Outside, the streetlight flickered on. The company survived, the ledgers balanced, the gossip quieted. People found someone else to talk about. Later that week, I drove to the lake cottage and sat on the steps where he must have sat, looking at the water and imagining a life where mistakes evaporated if you watched them long enough. The leaves were just starting to turn. I locked the door and slipped the key into an envelope addressed to the escrow agent. I pressed the edges down twice. A month after that, the friend from the golf course called my office. He wanted to meet, he said, to discuss a mutually beneficial way to resolve lingering tensions. I told him to send an email. He sent nothing. Men like him never email if they can charm. 2 months later, a journalist called to ask if I wanted to comment on a complaint filed against that friend and his fund for misleading investors. I didn't. I poured tea and read the article and felt something like justice, but cooler, less sweet. At year's end, we held our first annual meeting without the shadow of Daniel in the room. Employees brought children. We turned the warehouse floor into a temporary banquet hall. We gave out service awards. Paul got one, not for the stamp he should never have had, but for the 25 years he showed up when trucks were late and snow made dock doors stick and spreadsheets multiplied overnight. He cried a little, then when I handed him the plaque. We both did. On the last page of the year's financials, May left me a note in neat ink. We made it. I walked through the warehouse after the party, lights dimmed, pallets stacked like quiet chess pieces. I ran my hand over the rough wood of a crate. I thought of all the hands before mine, my husband's calloused fingers, Daniel's smaller hand in mine, Leah's careful hands making a life she did not know would tilt, my own hands holding a pen that became a blade and then a balm. People ask me if I regret firing him. They ask like there's a right answer that fits on a napkin. What I regret is every inch that brought him to the door where he could take my name and try it on. What I don't regret is saying no. A mother's love is not a savings account. It's a set of rules that keep you from drowning. A year later, I sat on a bench outside the courthouse while Daniel went in with his probation officer. He came out with a paper in his hand and a look on his face I hadn't seen since he was small and scared of thunderstorms and certain I could make the sky stop. He sat beside me. We watched a couple argue in hushed whispers under the elm tree. We watched a boy in a hoodie ride his bicycle where he shouldn't, a security guard waving him off with no real force. I apologized to Paul, Daniel said suddenly. He didn't forgive me. He said he might someday. Someday is a good word, I said. He took a breath. I'm sorry, he said finally, the words thin and real. I know, I said. We sat quiet. The sky did not stop. It softened. Back at the office, May brought me a draft of next year's budget and a tin of tea from her grandmother. I opened the tin and breathed in the scent of something steady. I rolled my chair to the window and watched a truck back into Bay 3, brake lights winking, the driver's arm hanging out the open window, an ordinary miracle. I thought of the first day my husband and I opened for business, and the thrill of a bell over a door and the terror of being responsible. I thought of my son, who I love, and the signature I defended, and the truth that saved us. I thought of the distance between kindness and weakness, how thin it looks from far away, and how wide it feels when you stand on it and refuse to move. The phone buzzed. Leah's name. A photo of my granddaughter holding a certificate from school, a grin with 2 new front teeth. I texted back a heart, then another, because 2 felt right. I put the phone face down. I looked at the contract on my screen. I looked at the calendar with its squares full of meetings and its blank Sunday that I guard. When I lock the office now, I feel the satisfying click of a life that fits. I know where the keys are. I know where the stamp is. Melted down, recast as a paperweight with the company's first ship date etched on top. When visitors ask about it, I say it's a reminder that the tools we make to save time sometimes cost more than they pay back. I don't tell them the rest. The rest is for me. The ledger of love and boundaries, the arithmetic of mercy and consequence. Justice, I have learned, is not a thunderclap. It's a series of small doors that you close with your own hands, even when the person on the other side is your child. And revenge, the word people like to whisper about my story, isn't a screaming match or a public shaming. It's the quiet way you choose not to be broken, the quiet way you show the truth under good lights, the quiet way you keep the business open, the wages paid, the cakes cut, the candles blown out, all of them, one by one, until the room is dark and clean and ready for morning.
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.